Hey, what's up you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you my weekly review.
Hey, what's up you guys? Bloody Jacob here, meeting my icon, Kathryn Bigelow here.
Come along if you can. Take a ride to the land inside of your mind. Beyond the seas of thought, beyond the realm of want. Across the streams of hopes and dreams where things are really not. Come along if you can. Come along if you can.
Have a good one.
Take a ride to the
Cheers, guys.
inside of your mind. But please realize you'll probably be surprised.
Hey, what's up you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring another movie review. This time we're going to be talking about Near Dark, a 1987 vampire horror movie that sort of went under the radar amongst other names during the year. You know, like The Lost Boys, which I reviewed a number of months ago. Yeah, the late 80s was a pretty popular time for horror movies. I mean, you had, like I said, The Lost Boys, you had Pumpkinhead, Nightmare on Elm Street sequels, Friday the 13th sequels, of course, Hellraiser, a bunch of other stuff like that. So excuse me for 1 second. Alright, sorry about that, guys. But yeah, my point was that, it came out during a pretty, pretty popular time for horror movies, so thus I think Near Dark ended up being one of those that sort of lost in the shuffle and sort of flew under the radar. I hadn't heard much about it until this past August at the Flashback Horror Con in Chicago, where Lance Henriksen was a guest, which was really, really cool, by the way. I'm kicking myself for not paying to meet him directly, but I did sit in on one of his panels, and I got to hear him talk about this movie. He was kind of talking about movies I just sort of signed on for to get, money, or ones I just signed for, just getting off a plane, just, it is what it is. But this movie, he does still hold a genuine fondness for, and actually is kind of proud of that he worked on it. So yeah, this movie stars Lance Henriksen. He's the leader of this small, traveling group of vampires, and it's also directed by Kathryn Bigelow, who went on to direct a number of bigger films like The Hurt Locker and Detroit recently with John Boyega. Which I know got quite a lot of praise, for the way it depicted certain things. She's also married to James Cameron, so he actually makes a small appearance in this movie as a guy flipping him off, so that's cool. But yeah, like I said, it stars Lance Henriksen, but also Adrian Pasdar, so our protagonist Caleb. He's a 20-something-year-old guy. He's in this movie. Kathryn Bigelow intended as a hodgepodge or a western and another genre, and since the vampire thing was kind of getting popular with Fright Night in '85 as well, and Lost Boys released a couple months before this, she wanted to mix the western with a vampire sort of horror movie, and that's very evident here with the film's style and the environment and everything, of course, and how certain scenarios play out. Even in a couple classic shootouts. But yeah, so Caleb, he's a small town boy, sort of. He just ends up flirting with this girl named May, played by Jenny Wright, and he's slowly drawn into this gang, or this group that she's a part of, which of course turns out to be vampires. Another member of the group, he's kind of the more psychotic, the most psychotic vampire of the group. It's Severin, played by Bill Paxton, actually, who's a pretty big name for this movie. He passed away this past year, unfortunately, which, 2017 had a slew of those. It was just really, really, hard to see. Bill Paxton's really good in this as well, though. If you guys watch The Vampire Diaries, he almost reminds me of like Damon at his worst in this movie. He's just really eccentric. He has similar hair, and there's there's a scene of him here in a bar that they go to, and has a few people, and they just torment them and slowly go about killing them, but kind of mind fucking with them too. It's probably one of the best scenes in the movie, though, and Bill Paxton really plays that cocky, arrogant, sadistic vampire well. Like I said, my main interest here is with Lance Henriksen, though, and he's very good in this. He's the oldest of the group, like I said, the leader. He had been around since at least the Civil War, from what he said. He fought on the South Side. But, this movie did a good job at sort of making you think about all the characters, though. Because it's not like they're not trying to concoct some diabolical scheme to take over or something. They're just sort of existing, just going about it, their various ways of getting blood and killing people, but they're not doing anything more than that. They're not going on like, trying to take over towns or, like I said, the world or something like that. So it's not over the top. It knows the kind of movie it is, and it's small scale in a very appropriate way. And I also want to commend Adrian Pasdar and Jenny Wright. Their love story in this, May, she's very tortured. She's probably the youngest vampire of them. But, you can tell she has a lot of confliction within herself, but she's also become very good at being what she is. Adrian Pasdar did a pretty good job, but I really like Jenny Wright in this movie. I'll talk about it more in comparison to Lost Boys in a couple minutes, but I really liked her. She has these eyes that just worked really well for the role. She's very, very pretty, of course. And she has a way of delivering her dialogue as well, as that works. And just her mannerisms and the way she goes about is like pretty much a near perfect portrayal of the kind of character she was attached to. So I actually liked their love story, and the way it sort of started off as Caleb flirting with her to actually becoming like a subtly deeper thing than that, I thought was really nice. And it's one of the better love stories I've seen in a horror movie recently. It didn't really feel thrown together. They sort of took their time with it, which I liked. And yes, it is a better love story than Twilight. But yeah, I really like this movie, actually. I appreciate it in comparison to The Lost Boys, which I know is a big, seen as a big classic horror movie from the 80s. Probably one of the biggest vampire movies ever. And I liked it, not nearly as much as some people, though. I rate it like a B-, almost a C+ or so. But, that movie is also a very different style. It's much more over the top and sort of less self-serious. Whereas Near Dark was much more self-serious and didn't have nearly as much comedy. There's just like little interactions that are kind of, chuckle-worthy here and there, but still very much a self-serious movie. And when it comes down to it, I appreciate that style more than what The Lost Boys went for. And, but, it depends on your mood as well. I'm sure I'll be more in the mood for Lost Boys again sometime, but I think a movie like Near Dark will always resonate more with me. I think the performances are better in this, actually. I find Lance Henriksen more interesting as a leader than Kiefer Sutherland. Also, enjoy my Saska Sisters shirt. I got this on Terror Threads, which is, very cool. So I want to show this off real quick. TerrorThreads.com, check it out. They have a number of those on there, but they're selling out fast, so check it out as soon as you can. But yeah, anyway, I guess I mostly just appreciate the styles of this movie more, and whatever love angle there was in Lost Boys, I think was much better done in Near Dark too. And like I said, Kathryn Bigelow did a really nice job, mixing like the Western kind of thing with horror. And it had a very gloomy, dark and sort of gritty tone to it, but never felt over the top. It felt very real. Lance Henriksen, his name is Jesse Hooker in the movie, him and his gang with Bill Paxton, I still felt like kind of real characters. It never went too overboard. Except like I said in the bar scene, which, was, still pretty cool. And you don't really know what to think of him throughout the movie either. He's not quite as off the rails as Bill Paxton's vampire, but at the same time, you can tell he sort of revels in it too, and what he is, he's fine with it. But he has a woman as well, and they have a scene in a car with just the two of them. They're sort of reflecting on when they met each other, and so you can tell it's not all completely bad with him. There's a little bit of good in him, just a tiny bit. But things definitely take a nasty turn towards the end. And the ending I thought was fine. It was a little bit too good for me, though, in a certain way, because I ended up discovering blood transfusions can actually cure vampires, apparently, and I found that kind of weird. I found that kind of like a oddly easy way, out of the whole thing, because Caleb ends up being turned as well, and he's trying to adjust to being one of them, sort of like in Lost Boys. And I kind of like that story, how that was progressing, but he can never quite bring himself to kill someone. And May is trying to keep the others from getting rid of him and give him more time to adjust and everything, but that doesn't end up working. So, blood transfusion, when she comes across his little sister and his father, and appears to turn him back. And then he goes into town wearing a cowboy hat on a horse to try and stop the other ones. So that, that felt a little bit silly, just a tiny bit. But I still liked it, and things definitely get brutal with Bill Paxton's character, because he ends up getting like half his face, burned and taken off, and then he ends up dying in a big, truck explosion. They take more time for the confrontation between Caleb and Jesse, Lance Henriksen, though. And I like how the sun is handled in this movie as well. It burns him, and after a certain amount of time, it just makes him kind of burst into flames, literally, and explode a little. It still kind of felt real to the world, though, when that happens. So I have to use blankets, and May, she ends up making a choice to rush out there and trying to get Caleb's sister out of the situation, almost sacrificing, killing herself in the process. And then Jesse, he makes one last effort with Diamondback, his woman, to run Jesse, or to run Caleb and May down, and the sister and everything. But he burns up just before he does. And he sort of knew that could happen because him and Diamondback hold hands as they do it, because they know how it's probably going to end, but they go for it anyway. Then they die. And then the ending is Caleb taking May through the same transfusion that he did, and she's human again. It's all nice, and she gets to be in the sun again, which is touching, because like I said, I did like May and Caleb's romance together. So I felt for her. I like that she got to be happy. But at the same time, it kind of felt too good, for the kind of movie it was. But you know what, I can deal with it, because like I said, I bought into their relationship, and there actually is some fairly nice written dialogue and delivered dialogue, towards the beginning when they're first bonding, and she's talking about the night and everything you can hear and stuff like that. But yeah, still overall, I think a movie I really liked watching, one that I appreciated, like I said, more than a movie like The Lost Boys. I'm very glad, I heard Lance Henriksen talking about it at his panel at the Flashback HorrorCon. So after that, I found the movie for pretty cheap, and I'm glad I finally watched it. Definitely going to try and watch more horror movies that are in my literal stack via TV, so this is another push, to go about that. So hopefully we'll be seeing more horror movie reviews a little more often for me coming up. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought about Near Dark if you've seen it. And if I had to rate it, I'd rate it... I gave it a solid B when I made that. But I think it could definitely go a B or B+. Like I said, I definitely liked it more than Lost Boys overall. And I just really appreciated the way the film was done, the way the characters were handled and written. I thought it was pretty good, for sure. So, yeah. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, like, subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.